Now to that grenade found in Times Square that we told you about last night. The NYPD was swarmed by pro-Palestinian protesters when they responded to reports that the grenade was found in an Uber car. Sources tell Fox it was an inactive novelty item. CB Cotton is live in Fox Square with the story for us. CB.
Hi, John. It was a novelty grenade, but NYPD's chief of patrol says next time it could be a very real threat. He had this to say about the crowd, which blocked first responders. He wrote on X, quote, "This is dangerous. One day when the call is real and people get hurt, then what? I will tell you what, silence and cowardice from all the people who advocate for protesters to be allowed to disrupt the streets. Then the first responders will arrive to do the best they can." Now, the bomb threat followed a pro-Palestinian protest which began at a New York City park. This one of several across the country, part of a global day of action calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. Here in New York City, there was no measurable crowd of pro-Israel demonstrators in response, but the crowd of about 3,500 pro-Palestinian demonstrators marched and chanted for several blocks. Oscar-winning actress Susan Sarandon was one of several high-profile names at the protest. You may remember Sarandon was dropped from her top-tier talent agency, UTA, last fall after she said during a rally that Jewish people in the States are getting a taste of what it feels like to be Muslim in America. She later apologized for those remarks, and yesterday she appeared to double down on her pro-Palestinian activism while she encouraged others to do the same.
We must embrace each other and thank each other and encourage other people to be brave and come out for what will ultimately be proven to be on the right side of history. No one is free until all of us are free.
Now, the NYPD tells us nearly a dozen people were taken into custody yesterday. Of those, 6 people are facing charges for resisting arrest, and 2 are facing assault charges. John.
CB Cotton in New York City. CB, thanks.
The ceasefire is beyond the debate of whether myself or Arab Americans will be voting for Biden. He basically divorced us. He basically shot us in the back. We don't need to be supporting countries that are engaging in genocide.
That's one Michigan voter in no uncertain terms explaining why he cannot support President Biden. Many like him tried to send a message to the president during the state's primary last Tuesday by voting uncommitted. Backlash is especially severe coming from the Arab American community. Zuhdi Jasser is running for Congress in Arizona. He's the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Zuhdi, thanks for being with us on this evening. This uncommitted vote, what is it and how important is it, do you think?
Good to be with you, John. Thanks for having me. Well, you know, this so-called uncommitted vote, basically the Bernie Sanders socialists, they're gaslighting and radicalizing the Democratic Party. That's really what they're all about, is trying to continue. Their commitment is to foreign ideologies. Their commitment is to foreign priorities. And if Biden had any fiber, if he had any compass, he'd tell them there's no place for it in the party of today. He'd tell them that Israel's war is just. He would tell them that this is a war for saving the West, for saving liberalism, and say that 99% of Americans want to get back to the border, get back to security, get back to the economy, get back to parental rights, the rot in our schools and our educational system and in our institutions, and stop the weaponization of government. But he doesn't care about the rest of the Arab American community that are truckers, that are auto workers. The individual you had on earlier with that clip where he said they are divorced, he speaks for the radicals. He speaks for Islamists, for foreign movements. American movements that happen to be Arabic, that happen to be Syrian, that happen to be Muslim, are folks that care about the economy that's in shambles, that care about border and security, and feel that the destruction and defeat of Hamas is the most pro-Muslim thing you could do.
Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut had some sort of veiled advice for the president on this issue. Listen to how he sees it.
I would hope that the president doesn't make decisions about what to do in Gaza or the Middle East based upon how the votes line up. To the extent the president is using additional leverage on Israel, he should do that for national security reasons, not for political reasons. These issues are too important to be dictated by the polls.
Do you see the president bowing to this uncommitted vote in Michigan, Zuhdi?
He's completely missing in action, which basically allows them to be radicalized. And by the way, John, the likes of Senator Chris Murphy that now have an epiphany about national security and our relationship with Israel post-October 7, he, from the floor of the Senate, Senator Murphy, called me anti-Muslim, called our Islamic organization a hate group, and we asked him for an apology in 2018, and now all of a sudden he's calling on President Biden and the Democratic Party to be pro-Israel when we were actually defending Israel long before his party started radicalizing. So I can tell you, if Americans are concerned about who's representing the hyphenated groups and the woke groups, our website is z4az.com. There are those of us that are rational Arab Americans that want to lead with security and economic, success.
Yeah, well, we've always appreciated your commentary. Very quickly here, in the latest Fox News polling, and this is number 4, Control Room, when it comes to Israel, the United States is too supportive. That's what about 30% of Americans say. We're looking for poll 4 here. Too supportive, 30%. Not supportive enough toward Israel, 27%. About right, 38%. So those numbers haven't changed a whole lot over the past year or so. Your thoughts, Zuhdi?
Well, again, leadership, John, is about education. And I think a lot of those numbers will shift to being 90% supportive of policies like President Trump's that created the Abraham Accords, policies that stood behind our ally Israel in being the beacon for the hope of democracy and freedom and protecting the West, and that they've been at the tip, as we saw on October 7th, the Israelis have been at the tip of the sword when it comes to attacks on the West, anti-Semitism, and the genocide committed against them by Hamas. So those numbers will only improve, and there's a sucking sound coming from the Democratic Party into the Republican Party as the Jewish community, parents, military, veterans, others are coming to the Republican Party to vote because they're abandoning the radicalization of the Democrats.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, also a congressional candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
More attacks.